Cardinals Cover 2 is brought to you by Arizona Cardinals Podcasts. Visit azcardinals.com/podcasts. From Cardinals headquarters, here's Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki.
Well, welcome to a Game Plan Wednesday. That's right, week one right around the corner on Sunday, and Wednesdays are always busy here at the Cardinals facility in Tempe. A pleasant good afternoon. Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki, and yeah, you could kind of sense a little bit different of a Wednesday as opposed to when you're talking about a Wednesday or just a normal practice in training camp of the preseason. But you hear from the head coach, you hear from the quarterback, and yes, it's Sam Bradford. That competition, there really was no competition. Bradford's the starter, Josh Rosen is the backup, but Wednesday is the busy day of the week leading into game one on Sunday.
Yeah. And then we get the injury report, which we're going to get into a little bit later. So it's officially obviously getting ready for the opener, but, I think that guys are, looking at it, all right, it's time now to get going because we know this team needs to get off to a good start. It's imperative. I mean, 3 of their first 4 are at home. We've talked about the second half of the season. 5 of the final 8 games are on the road, so it's important and imperative to go and play in front of your home crowd and try to get a victory on Sunday.
Yeah, week one on Sunday against the Washington Redskins. 1:25 is the kickoff at State Farm Stadium. 8:30 a.m. pregame. The coverage begins on the Arizona Cardinals radio network. All right, let's take off on this Wednesday, and here's what's ahead on the show today. Sam Bradford, excited. More importantly, he's healthy. Also looking forward to working with the Cardinals' young wide receivers. We've been focused a lot about the wide receivers. Now we'll hear from Bradford as he knows who the 5 receivers he'll be throwing to this season, plus your questions via social media as well. Still time to get those in. #CardsCovered2. #CardsCovered2 using the number 2. We do it each and every show, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here, 3 p.m. live on azcardinals.com/live video. You can also find us on YouTube. Just search Cards Covered 2. And in case you might miss a show, download it as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, or TuneIn. But first, the news of the day. According to head coach Steve Wilks, full participation, MJ, on the practice field during the open portion of practice. The only player we did not see amongst the players on the field was defensive end Marcus Golden. That's to be expected coming off the ACL injury. But outside of that, everyone at least did something on the field Wednesday.
Yeah, and you got 52 of your 53 guys on the active roster that are healthy. Obviously some guys were limited according to the injury report, but there's no setbacks there. And Coach Wilks did say, if you're Golden, he's doing more, but if he doesn't practice on Thursday, it looks like maybe, I don't want to put words in his mouth, probably a long shot if he plays. Now, the main thing is no setbacks. His rehab is according to plan, and you don't want him to rush back and then have a setback. So if they can get 12 to 14 games out of him, I'm sure you like to play the whole season considering it's a contract year, but they're going to be cautious with him. But if he doesn't practice tomorrow, probably a long shot to play on Sunday.
He was referring to Golden when he made that comment about Thursday, and this is the first inkling that we've heard from Coach about how he wants to see players practice before making them available on
Correct.
Sunday. And I'm sure every player is different. Larry Fitzgerald can get away without practicing as much, but as a first-year head coach, there's a handful of players that he's okay with maybe not practicing as much, but especially with Golden, I think they want to see him do something as opposed to just get on the field Friday and then practice and then play on Sunday.
Yeah, and again, I think we can put this under the same umbrella with Jermaine Gresham. I mean, Gresham is practicing now. Is he going to suit up? We don't know. But if he does play, it's not going to be 65 snaps because you got to get into football shape. It's great to work out on the side, but you got to stop and go. And, so be curious to see if Gresh is up and how active he can be, but I don't think he's going to play the full game. Now, the key bringing up this injury report is Robert Kimdichie, Corey Peters, and Olsen Pierre all returned to practice. We know how valuable the interior line is going to be for the Arizona Cardinals. So you look at the top 4 guys, they're healthy going into week one.
Here is the official injury report as put out by the Arizona Cardinals on Wednesday afternoon. Marcus Golden did not practice. Jermaine Gresham, TJ Logan, Robert Kimdichie, Corey Peters, Olsen Pierre all limited. Logan, Kimdichie, and Pierre were not on the practice field on Monday, so good to see those three back, and in particular, as you mentioned, MJ, Kimdichie, and Pierre along that defensive line. And Corey Cunningham, the 7th-round draft pick, the offensive lineman, a full participant, even though he's dealing with a thumb injury. But all in all, I mean, that's a pretty solid injury report going into week 1 as far as who's up and only one down.
Now, as we get into the season, what you don't want to see on Wednesday and Thursday is DNP, did not practice. And obviously it's a physical sport, so you're going to have that at certain times. But for the most part, I mean, these guys have been rehabbing, and they could have played Kimdichie in that 4th preseason game. Why, though? I mean, they were looking at other guys. So the main thing is to get these guys healthy. But 52 of 53 guys on the roster healthy, that's pretty good going into the season.
And keep in mind, part of the reason why the Cardinals kept 10 defensive linemen on the 53-man roster is because of the injuries to Kimdichie, Pierre, and to a certain extent Corey Peters. But again, all of those players on the practice field doing something on Wednesday. Also on Wednesday, the announcement on the team captains for the 2018 season. Here is head coach Steve Wilks.
I talked to the team about that. Larry Fitzgerald, Sam Bradford, Patrick Peterson, Chandler Jones, Corey Peters, Antoine Bethea, Phil Dawson. Those are our 2018 team captains. Very proud of them. And they were picked and chosen by their peers. Coaches didn't have anything to do with it. So just goes to show you exactly what their teammates think of them.
Typically, it's 2 offense, 2 defense, 2 special teams. The Cardinals going with 4 defensive players, and that tells a lot. I don't know if it's a reflection on the head coach being a defensive-minded head coach, but certainly you have a lot of leaders on that defensive side of the football for the Cardinals here in 2018.
Yeah, I think you and I know who the leaders are in that locker room. We obviously know the quarterback's always going to have the C. Carson had it for a while there. Larry's, as long as he's wearing a Cardinal uniform, he's going to have. I think A.Q. Shipley would have been a captain if he was healthy. But again, Chandler Jones, first time he's been a captain. Antoine Bethea, the first time he's been a captain. Corey Peters, first time he's been a captain, I want to say. And then you throw in Patrick Peterson, obviously old hat for him. So when I look at that locker room, those 4 defensive guys stick out to me as leaders in the locker room.
And I went up to Peters during the media availability inside the locker room and congratulated him. And you could tell it meant something to him as a first-time captain, because it is an honor. Not only do you get to wear the C, but it's something that the players themselves, your peers, voted on that.
Yeah, and last year I want to say Frosty Rucker was a captain, and Corey Redding was a guy that was more of a leadership role. Unfortunately, he got injured a couple years ago, but Corey Peters, I mean, he's in the same room with those 10 defensive linemen. He has the most experience from those guys, so they look up to him. And maybe he's not going to fill up your notebook with a soundbite, but when it comes to push comes to shove, he's one of the guys that they rely on. And obviously having Kimdichie and Pierre and Gunter, he's a wealth of knowledge for those young guys.
One other announcement on Wednesday, tackle DJ Humphries officially named today as the player host for the Big Red Rage. He takes over for Carlos Dansby. The Big Red Rage airs Thursdays at 6 from Marley's Sports Grill at the Chandler Fashion Center. If you can't make it to Marley's, you can certainly listen on ESPN 620 AM. The show has been on the air since 2001, and I can't think of a better player than Humphries. Is certainly vociferous, great personality. He'll do well teaming with Paul Calvisi and Ron Wolfley.
Yeah, it's always interesting who they select. Obviously, he's a guy that, he's going to have to stay healthy, but I agree with you personality-wise. He's a guy that's going to fill up your notebook. He's not afraid to speak. And, they're expecting big things from him this year, but I think they got the right guy, and he's going to be very entertaining to the fan base if you go out to Marley's. If not, you can listen online.
Yeah, more on Humphries later on in the show, including your social media questions as well. Hashtag Cards Covered 2. Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki here on Cards Covered 2. Hashtag Cards Covered 2 using the number 2 here to get involved in the show. All right, let's take a look at Sam Bradford, his weekly press conference on Wednesday. It's the first opportunity. Well, we've heard him several times, but this is now the first opportunity to hear from your starting quarterback going into week 1. And I believe it was your question, MJ, just asking Bradford about his excitement level now that the regular season is upon us.
I think more than anything, just excited. Since the spring, I think we've been laying what is a great foundation. Coach Wilks talks about laying bricks, and I think we've laid, a solid foundation. Now it's time to go out there and play for real. And I think today was a great first practice. A lot of energy. Guys were flying around. So I'm excited about this week. I think everyone is. I think at this point you just realize how special each game is. It truly is a blessing to be out there every Sunday, every time that you get to step on the field with your teammates. After having gone through some of the injuries that I have and, having not been able to be out there, I don't think you take it for granted at all. I think you realize how special it is and how unique of a position we're in to be able to do what we do, and really with the mindset of just trying to make it the most of it. I think there'll just be a lot of excitement, to be honest, just to be able to play football again, to get back on that field. It was great going through, today and getting back in the regular season mode. Last night, the night before, just kind of getting back into the film prep work and, the routine that I'm used to, the things that I've done in the past. My wife even said something. She's like, huh? She's like, you're back in the routine. And I'm like, we're back in the routine. So, it just feels good to be back.
High and tight, fresh haircut from Sam Bradford.
I noticed it on Monday. It's the regular season. Everyone wants to look good.
Exactly. Now, you got to give the Cardinals medical staff a lot of credit here because when they signed him, they had a plan for him. And I know there was questions about why isn't he not participating in maybe some of the off-season workouts. The whole idea was to get him ready for week one. And according to Bradford, the knee has not felt stronger than it is right now based on previous years. Now, obviously, he's going to take some hits, and hopefully they can protect him. But the fact is they went through the entire plan, and these are the fruits of the labor we're seeing going into week one. That was the whole idea, to get him on this plan with rehab, and he's done a lot of rehab. And, yes, he got a couple days off in training camp, just like some of the aging veterans like Larry Fitzgerald, and some other guys for the most part. But I give them credit because that was when they signed him, they gave him, and even when he went back to Oklahoma for his off-season workout, they were continuing to work with him. Buddy Morris was sending Federal Express stuff to him, to what he wants him to do and everything else. So he stayed on the plan. They had a plan for him, and I think that's the reason why he feels as good as he does going into the regular season.
Well, and remember, and he also didn't play much in the preseason. They limited his snap count quite a bit, and he was asked about that today, and it didn't seem to bother him. I think he's okay with it because of the plan that was laid out in front of him when he was signed in the offseason. But all of this certainly is leading to this opportunity, and yes, it's the quote-unquote if healthy. He understands it. Hopefully one day that won't have to be tagged to his name. But until he can show that, yes, I can get through an entire season or play 14, 15 games, people are always going to have that question mark.
Yeah, and, listen, I understand because of his history that he's been labeled injury prone. I get that. But DJ Humphries has got to stay healthy. Mike Upati's got to stay healthy. David Johnson's got to stay healthy. All these guys were on IR last year, so he's not the only guy. But I know because of his history, that's the first thing that comes to mind. Now, we also know that Mike McCoy is going to tailor this offense where he's not going to take 5- and 7-step drops. And that's what, the issue was with Arians, where the Cardinals quarterbacks have been hit 250 times in the last 2 years between Palmer, Stanton, and Blaine Gabbert. So it's going to be a completely different offense. Obviously, they want to run the ball. Maybe we'll see them take some shots down the field because if teams start stacking the line, you're going to have to throw the football a little bit. And we know that Larry Fitzgerald is going to be really targeted in the slot. We'll see Christian Kirk. We'll see Chad Williams. We'll see Ricky Seals-Jones. We'll see David Johnson. So they're not going to rely on just one guy. But if they can get him in that shotgun 3-step drop, get rid of the football, he won't take as many hits as the previous quarterbacks have taken him with a different regime.
And you heard him talk about routine, back in a routine. Remember, he missed 14 games last season, so that has not been much routine for Sam Bradford lately. But, of course, it's because of the knee. It's feeling good. Asked once again about the knee, Bradford spoke very, very well of it.
I know that right now it does feel as good as it has felt in a long time. I've done everything in my power to put myself in this position. If something happens and I get injured, or if something happens and it doesn't hold up, I'm going to hold my head high knowing that I put my body and myself in the best position to succeed. And I think that's all you can do, and that's really what I've told myself throughout this process.
And that's the thing. Injuries are going to happen, and a lot of his injuries are non-contact, fluke, whatever you want to call it. He's snake bit. and I don't think it's injury prone. It's just bad luck more than anything. And to hear him say, I've done everything possible, I can't do anything more. If I get hurt, it's not because I didn't make my body 100% and do everything I can preventative. And sometimes it doesn't matter. You can do everything that you are told to do and still suffer an injury.
Yeah, and there were some follow-up questions to that, and he says, I hope at some point in time that this isn't the narrative to my career. Now, playing 12 to 14 games would go a long way. Now, granted, you want 16 games, but just saying in general, if he can play at least 12 to 14, hopefully all 16, I think this team could be pushed for a playoff spot because of Sam Bradford, because of the offensive line, because of David Johnson. I mean, so again, it's the narrative going in, but if he's able to stay healthy, then it's the best thing for the organization and the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, you get through week 1, week 2, and then all of a sudden those questions start to die down and people are focusing on your performance on the field, not off the field rehab. Of course, it wasn't that long ago in which Bradford was leading the NFL, in fact, setting an NFL record for completion percentage. The Cardinals' opponent this week, the Washington Redskins, head coach Jay Gruden, very well aware of what Bradford can do. Gruden spoke to the local media earlier on a conference call and praised the Cardinals quarterback.
You know, obviously when he's healthy early in the season, the first game of the year, every time he's been healthy, he's a very accurate, precise quarterback. You know, I think nobody can doubt that his arm is very talented. You know, I think he's had a couple injuries as of note that has probably slowed his progress down a little bit. He's been on a few different systems and teams, and you know, but I think you protect Sam Bradford, you give him time to throw. I think he's as good as anybody, really. He's got a great, accurate arm, and it's something we have to do. We have to figure out ways to disrupt his timing for us to have a chance.
You know, you start looking at the matchup this weekend, you're talking about 2 former first-round picks, or first overall picks,
yes,
in Bradford and Alex Smith. And the fact is, you look at accuracy, they're one of the top 5 guys in the entire league. So I don't see – now the Cardinals' defense forced a ton of turnovers in the preseason, but I don't anticipate this being a turnover fest. Now the Cardinals will swarm the ball. They will try to punch the ball out. They feel like if they get pressure on Alex Smith, maybe he'll throw the ball a little bit sooner than he wants. But you're going to have 2 accurate quarterbacks going against each other coming up in week 1.
And it all starts with protection. You heard Coach Gruden mention we need to knock him off his spot, disrupt him a little bit. And the Redskins have one of the better pass rushers in the NFL that probably doesn't get talked a lot about, and that is Ryan Kerrigan. 71.5 sacks since he's been entered in the league, yet he's not talked about amongst the elite pass rushers. But here he comes, and all of a sudden the offensive line, which has Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack in back-to-back weeks 2 and 3, all of a sudden, don't forget about week 1.
Yeah, I mean, it's a scenario where, I mean, you got to figure – the reason why he probably doesn't get the credit he deserves, Ryan Kerrigan, is because he's a left defensive end. Usually your premier pass rushers on the right side. Now, normally teams run the ball to their right side. Those are your run game. We know how effective Upati and Humphreys can be, but Justin Pugh and Andre Smith. Andre Smith's going to have his work cut out. So I got to anticipate we're going to see a little bit of Derek Coleman as a fullback to help out. We could see a tight end over there. We could see an extra lineman over there. But Ryan Kerrigan, because he plays on the left side, doesn't get the credit he deserves. But he's a really good player. You can't take a play off. But Andre Smith is going to have his work cut out.
Yeah, 1:25 is the kickoff on Sunday from State Farm Stadium. Pre-game coverage begins at 8:30 on the Arizona Cardinals radio network. Protection obviously is key. You got to make sure that Sam Bradford stays upright and has the time, whether it's to hand the ball off, but specifically whether he has the time to throw to the receivers. We know Larry Fitzgerald, J.J. Nelson, those 2 have the experience. Chad Williams, not so much. Then you got a pair of rookies in Christian Kirk and Trent Sherfield, though those 2 and the entire group itself, Bradford has worked with for a while now, including the offseason, training camp, and preseason. Bradford okay with throwing to those young wide receivers.
Yeah, I'm excited about all the young guys we've got. You know, I think, you know, even though they haven't maybe played a ton of football or as much football as Larry has, you know, I think young players come into this league and I think they're hungry. You know, I think you see it with the guys that we have on this roster, you know, in the way that they attack practice, you know, their mindset coming in. You know, I thought the competition in training camp with those guys was great because each day they were stepping onto the field, you know, to make plays and to prove themselves, you know, and to really, you know, earn their spot on the field. And so, you know, as many young guys as we have, you know, I think they're all extremely talented. Yeah, Chad, he's got all the tools to be a great receiver. Just, his speed, his physicality, he's won a number of contested one-on-one balls in training camp. He's a guy who's really strong at the catch point. I think that's something that I've noticed with him is, if he's in a one-on-one situation and you give him the opportunity, if he gets his hands on it, he's usually coming down with it. And then Christian, I think he's very versatile. He can play outside, he can play inside. He's got some speed, he's got some quickness. So I'm looking forward to him and just kind of how we use him and, how we can kind of move him around.
Now, Chad Williams is officially listed as the number 2 wide receiver on the depth chart. Of course, you got Larry Fitzgerald and Chad Williams are your 2 starters. How they come out, play one on Sunday will depend on, obviously, where field position is. But you will see a bunch of these young wide receivers, and there's been plenty of reps with Bradford and those players. But certainly young players want to make plays, and sometimes you have to caution them that they don't try too hard because you want to put that positive first step forward. Yet that's sometimes when you make mistakes because you're thinking, there comes the ball, I need to make sure I catch it. And then all of a sudden you've turned up field before you actually secured the football.
So what are you saying? Mike McCoy's going to come out 4 wide?
We joked about that earlier in the week. It wouldn't surprise me because we're all expecting
they're
a bunch of run.
Okay.
And all of a sudden they'll go 5. How about they'll go 5 wide? Sherfield will be the
they
5th
have
wide
5
receiver.
Yeah, who's that 5th receiver?
Yeah,
Sherfield?
Sherfield. Make it. They'll start on Sunday. Go 5 wide. Throw the ball. J.J. Nelson, deep ball down the middle.
I mean, you want to keep your opponent and Greg Minuski kind of, play chess, but I would say they're probably not going to come out with the jumbo package.
Probably not.
Maybe 2 tight ends and the fullback and David Johnson. I mean, they could throw on the first play of the game because everyone's anticipating David Johnson's going to get the ball, right?
Well, we haven't seen a lot of this offense, and just how different is the offense going to be than what we saw in the preseason, at least in your opinion?
Well, I mean, it was vanilla, really vanilla. I think Mike McCoy's got, some plays up his sleeve. Now, Chad Williams, as you mentioned, if they go 3 wide, I got to think Christian Kirk's like 2A. And Christian Kirk, as Sam Bradford pointed out, he can play inside, outside. We know his natural position is in the slot, but we know Larry's going to be in the slot the majority of the time. I like the way Kirk gets off the line of scrimmage. I would like to see him in those crossing routes and then yards after catch. Same thing with Chad Williams. We saw that speed last year when he got a reverse and he was able to get a first down late in the year. And J.J. Nelson, I know that people are concerned about ball security. He gives them a deep threat, whether it's a decoy or not, and you can use him on the reverses. One thing I think when we look at this roster, and more on defense and offense, they've added speed to this team, and you can't teach that. So it'd be interesting, but I think there's a role for Christian Kirk. I really do. And considering they drafted him in the 2nd round, he's a rookie, though. It's going to be a little bit different for him, but I like the way he gets off the line in those first 5 yards. And if he gets off press coverage, I would use him in those crossing routes, and hopefully you get that yards after catch.
Do you think it was deliberate that we did not see a lot of J.J. Nelson? Because I'll give you a chance to answer, but throughout the entire preseason, it's, okay, who's going to make the roster? What receivers are going to make this team? And Nelson did nothing. We didn't see much of him to the point where I didn't think he was going to make the team, but perhaps because the offense was so vanilla, it was by design. Not that they were trying to hide him, but why show the opponent and the rest of the NFL what we can do with a J.J. Nelson? Keep him on the sideline. We know he's a part of the plan here in 2018. We're just not going to play him and go with these young guys to see what they can do.
Yeah, I never thought about that, from that standpoint. But I'll say this, though. They had to figure out what they had in Greg Little and Bryce Butler.
True.
Those guys were fighting for jobs. And, obviously they had some drops, too, and Butler didn't help himself. He missed a lot of time with the foot injury. So I think they were trying to find 6 receivers that can make this roster. And I think Trent Sherfield put those guys in the back burner. Nelson's making $1.9 million this year. They could have tried to trade him, but they decided to keep him because he is really without John Brown, he's your down-the-field threat. And if Bradford has enough time, not so much on a 5-step drop, but I think J.J. Nelson needs to improve on the intermediate routes. Maybe the 15 to 20-yard route where he's running on the outside and he goes on a slant pass where it's an easy throw for Bradford between the numbers, and then we know if he catches the ball, he's off to the races. So it's not so much throwing the ball 40 yards down the field. I want to see him more involved in the intermediate routes on those slant routes because it's going to be tough to catch him if he gets behind you.
And it's just separation. You don't need to beat
Right.
your receiver 10, 15 yards downfield, but if you can get quickly off the line of scrimmage and gain that separation, then that slant route, then, yeah, let his speed and its yards after catch all
Right.
of a sudden plays big because I think the only deep ball that I can remember thrown in the preseason was by Josh Rosen. Sam Bradford didn't do it at all. Again, I don't know if that was by design because they didn't want to open up the playbook, or it's they don't know what to do and we'll throw J.J. Nelson on the field, and all of a sudden that's a giant flashing signal that tells the defense, hey, watch the deep ball.
If you're Mike McCoy, and you know, I ran into Mike McCoy as he's going on the field, and you could just see he's hyped up for the game. I think they all are. They kind of want to see where they're at, and maybe it's not the greatest evaluation in just one game. I think you got to give him 4 games. But I'm sure when he looks at his offense, Sam Bradford, accuracy. David Johnson, a dual threat, not only in the rushing game, the receiving game. Larry Fitzgerald, Mr. Reliable. Then you throw in some young receivers in Christian Kirk and Chad Williams and possibly Sherfield. And then you throw in Ricky Seals-Jones. And the way this offensive line is blocking, I'm sure Mike McCoy has a couple plays up his sleeve that we did not see. I know they were very vanilla. It was really what they were doing is, Craig, was line up, beat the guy in front of you, and we'll figure out the game plan going into week 1.
Yeah, a lot of one-on-one matchups to figure out who we can use in the regular season because training camp and preseason is all about the individual. Regular season is about the team. But on the subject of the offense, Coach Wilks specifically asked, just how different will this offense look in the regular season?
Hopefully touchdowns. Hopefully moving the chains. Hopefully converting on third down. Hopefully scoring in the red zone and not kicking field goals. No, seriously, Bob, it's just, trying to execute the offense and trying to get the ball in the right guy's hands, trying to move it around a little bit, spread the ball around. Again, during preseason, you don't want to try to show too much, really trying to emphasize the technique, fundamentals, and the things that we've been trying to implement, and I thought those guys did a great job there.
Of course, spreading the football around is exactly what Bradford did. His first 7 passes completed went to 7 different receivers. On the flip side, though, offensively, there were a lot of 3-and-outs or 5-play drives ending in an Andy Lee punt. Third down conversion, and it doesn't matter if we're talking about the preseason. Those stats have to be better because otherwise, one, you're not moving the football, obviously, up and down the field. Plus, the flip side, or the trickle-down is the defense isn't getting much of a rest either.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we really look at this thing through the microscope, a couple things come to mind. Run the ball, stop the run, and force turnovers. And I'm not a big time of possession guy. It's what you do with the football. I mean, you can go from the 20 to the 20. If you're kicking field goals, then you're not getting 7 every time. Now, I'm not saying you can't, if you got to kick a 45 or a 50-yard field goal, hey, put points on the board. But the fact is, though, stop the run the football, force turnovers, and when you get in the red zone, you got to punch it in.
Well, specifically about running the football against the Washington Redskins, and I know every year is a different year, but a year ago, there was no team worse than stopping the run than Washington. 32nd in the league, over 134 yards a game they allowed rushing to their opponents. And, how much you can transfer that into this season, but it's something that I'm sure is being discussed.
They had 23 guys on IR.
That's true.
We know late in the year you just start stashing guys, bring up some guys from the practice squad. But Deron Payne, a first-round pick out of Alabama, Jonathan Allen, he had a shoulder injury last year. He wasn't really playing at a high level. Matter of fact, he missed some games. So they're their 2 starting defensive linemen there. I got to think that they feel like just if they can get pressure from their front 4, that's when Josh Norman should be able to come in. They got a couple linebackers that can go from sideline to sideline. But for the most part, when you get 23 guys on IR, those numbers reflect that.
Well, and that buck 34, I'm sure, is being discussed in Washington, especially when you have a David Johnson coming back healthy and ready to go and show that he wants to be that 2016 running back since he missed all of basically last season.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the last time David Johnson played against the Redskins, I want to say he had like 195 yards combined.
Rushing and receiving?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what the Cardinals hope. Once again, that
and
100 yards every single game.
And don't forget, he had 20 touchdowns.
Absolutely.
16 rushing and 4 receiving. It's not, again, this guy's a dual threat.
set the NFL record and Cardinals team record for most scrimmage yards and total touchdowns in 2016, and that is the David Johnson that everyone hopes to see in 2018. All right, before we get to your social media questions, hashtag Cards Covered 2. Still a couple more minutes to get those in. Hashtag Cards Covered 2 using the number 2. We talked about DJ Humphries. Well, he is the subject of our Big Red Vaults, the brand new player host. The Big Red Rage, he was wired for sound as we flash back to 2016 Cardinals Redskins. DJ Humphries on the mic.
The sound and fury of NFL football. Wired, presented by USAA, proud military appreciation partner of the Arizona Cardinals.
The roof is open, the sky is blue. It's a beautiful day for football in December.
There you go. There you go. There you go. That's my boy. Up front, it starts with us. All we got. We work too damn hard. Up front on 3, 1, 2, 3. Up front. Go. Oh. That's up. Look, show you, bro. Hey, you gonna be following me all day. Sing it then, little girl. Sing it then. Sing it then, baby girl. Tight, tight.
Wide receiver screen to the left to Fitz. An 11-yard pickup.
Run the wide receiver screen, and then DJ Humphries did an awesome job.
Woo! Damn! Oh, damn!
Fires complete to Gresham inside the 5, and he's down to the 2-yard line.
I got you, boy! I got you, boy! Yeah! You going over there? I'm going here.
Snap to Palmer. They're going to run it up the middle. David Johnson hit at the 1, trying to power his way in. He got in. Touchdown.
Get out of there! Get out of there! Get out of there! Get out of there! Hello? Hello? Yup. Appreciate that, cat. Mike with the ball skills.
Palmer drops back, has time, throws left side. It's caught by Floyd. He's in. Touchdown.
Michael Floyd! I got away with one. It wasn't vicious, though. It wasn't vicious. Woo! That's the first time I've been cut in the league. Damn. Damn. Boy, I got lucky. Did a hell of a job on that. I had to keep playing on that one. Damn. Got my ass whooped. What's your big ass coming over here for? Damn. Slow your ass down. Excuse my French.
They're going from their 34-yard line, 4th down and 1. Palmer under center. Handoff Johnson. Got the first down up the middle, still going 45. And up near midfield.
I can't believe he went for it in that situation.
I thought that was fake for a second. All right, here we go.
Takes the snap. It's a play fake. Palmer setting up. Steps up. Throws a deep ball going for Nelson to the end zone. And it is caught. It's a touchdown. How about that? And they take a 30-23 lead with a minute 56 to go.
Bro, you know how happy I am to get a win, bro? Oh my God, bro. I couldn't do another loss, bro. This is a win, bro. This feels so good right now. It's been a minute. We needed that bad.
And you wonder why DJ Humphries was selected to be the player host of the Big Red Rage. The man is non-stop, even on the field. During plays, as a defensive lineman moves over to get right in front of his face, he's asking the question, what are you doing? Why are you coming over here? He's the best.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the beauty of having a guy mic'd up because, I mean, this is what happens in a real NFL game. I mean, there's a little trash talking going on. But the fact that some of that B-roll, the highlights where you see him get to the secondary and those linebackers and corners, they really didn't want to mess with him. And he's just so personality, colorful. So they got a good guy there. And I went back and looked it up. David Johnson, a couple of years ago, I said 195. Sorry,
you were just a little bit off.
175.
You were just a little bit off. It was December 4th, 2016. He had 84 yards rushing, 91 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing, 1 receiving. You took the over. That's fine. You're just a little off, but you were on the right point.
175 yards. I mean, I'll sign up for 100 yards rushing and whatever when it comes to passing because that tells me they're able to control the line of scrimmage.
Absolutely. Week 1 comes your way on Sunday, 1:25 at State Farm Stadium. Cardinals and Redskins. 8:30 the pregame coverage begins on the Arizona Cardinals radio network. All right, time now for the Bird Gang to sound off your questions via social media. And we got a couple here via Twitter. A user wants to know, outside of Chandler Jones and Patrick Peterson defensively, who do you think will be the next big name from that defense?
I think it's going to be Budda Baker.
He started last year.
I know, but
well, the hype, I should say, started last year.
It was part-time, and then obviously when Matthew wasn't playing up to speed, they got him in there. He's a great special teams player, but he's going to play in the box. Now, I could sit here and give you Trey Boston. I think Antoine Bethea and Tyron Branch last year were playing at an MVP level before Branch got hurt. I'm going to go Budda Baker. I want to say Kemdichi or Hassan Reddick, considering where they were drafted, but I'm going to go Budda Baker.
And pay attention to how much we see Baker on special teams. Did not see that all in the preseason. I hope he does play special teams because he's an excellent special teams player. Also from Twitter, user wants to know, what players do you think will be the, and I'm assuming this is all Cardinals related, sack leader, interception leader, and receiving yards leader?
I got to think Fitz is going to lead him in receiving. I got to think Chandler Jones is going to lead him in sacks. Interceptions, last year, Bethea had 4.
Had 5.
5. Boston had 5. I want to say Patrick Peterson, but nobody throws to his side.
Jamar Taylor could be an interesting name to throw out there.
Yes, but I'm going to go with the guys that are playing center field. I'm going to go with Bethea again.
Bethea again? Okay.
Yeah. Because he's going to get some opportunities. Patrick doesn't get the same opportunities. If Budda Baker was playing back there, I'd give him. So just a guess, I'll go Bethea.
Yeah, he had a great season, and then it was cut short because of injury. But Antoine Bethea, one of the leaders, one of the captains of that defense for the Arizona Cardinals. All right, let's move to Instagram. User wants to know, where will the defense be ranked at the end of the season? Keep in mind, this has been a top 10 defense the last 5 years.
Yeah, but they were in the teens when it came to points allowed. I think yardage-wise, they could be a top 8 defense. I want to see them in the top 5 when it comes to points allowed. That's great that you could stop them, but you can't give up points in the red zone. You got to get them off the field on third down. So I'll say top 8, but I want to see them in the top 5 when it comes to points allowed.
And that's a good distinction to make, because how many times in the preseason did we see that bend but don't break, chunks, moving the ball down the field, and all of a sudden takeaway? Yeah, the yards, which is what they rank defense, sometimes can be a little bit misleading. Go by points allowed, and I like that, Mike. All right, speaking of the defense, Marcus Golden. When do you expect him back on the field this season?
Well, it's just a guess because, again, he hasn't had any setbacks. He's rehabbing on the side. I think it's important for him to start practicing, whether it's Thursday or Friday. And if that doesn't happen, then I would think he's out this Sunday, or it could be a long shot. I think they're going to be cautious with him. You know how I feel about this? I'd rather have a guy play 12 to 14 games, hopefully 14, where he comes back and he has a setback and he starts to miss some time. You don't want that. You want to make sure. And plus, he's not going to get cleared until the medical staff cleared. This is not a coaching decision. This is not a general manager decision. It's the medical staff. And I'm encouraged that he hasn't had any setbacks. Now, we're talking about a torn ACL, and it happened in week 4 last year. So, you start looking at 9 to 12 months, and some guys can come back a little bit earlier. But I would think we'll see him in September. I hope it's sooner rather than later, but that's just a guess.
And they can afford to be a little bit more cautious because I think, and it's a credit to Benson Mayowa, who has really stepped up to be that defensive end opposite Chandler Jones.
Experience. He comes from the Dallas Cowboys. I thought he looked really good in the preseason. He looked good in training camp. So he's going to have to hold the fort down until Golden comes back, but they're going to have a nice rotation over there also. So it's not going to be one guy. They're going to rotate guys. And Craig, what we saw in the preseason, they ran like a 4-2-5 defense.
Yeah, more defensive backs and just 2 linebackers.
Right. So Reddick will, curious to see what kind of playing time he gets, because I think he's playing his natural position, and I think he'll be really good on the flat for some of these running backs catching passes out of the backfield. But if they go 4-2-5, the 2 inside backers are going to be Buchanan and Bynes, and they want to get their playmakers on the field when it comes to safeties and corners.
Yeah, trying to get those takeaways, stop that receivers or at least the ball catchers from going too far down the field. All right, last question via social media, once again from Instagram. How much playing time do you see Christian Kirk getting this season?
Well, I think he's going to play, 30 to 40 snaps a game. Now, right now, he's one of the top 3 receivers. He's going to be on the field for kick returner. We'll see if he's on the coverage units, because when you're backup, you got to play on special teams. I think he'll have a role, and I think Mike McCoy is ready to unleash Christian Kirk, because we talked about how he gets off the line of scrimmage. I want to see him in the crossing routes, and there could be times Larry lines up on the outside and he plays in the slot. So I think he'll average about 40 to 45 snaps, but he's definitely going to have a role on special teams as a punt returner.
He's gained the confidence of all the coaches, the head coach, the position coaches, and of course you gain more by showing it now on game day. And as long as he and Chad Williams and J.J. Nelson, who's been the subject of a couple of drop balls in the preseason, if those guys can make catches, then you're feeling much better about the wide receivers.
And Wilks said today that maybe Christian Kirk doesn't get enough credit for how much speed he has. Everyone's talking. Wilks brought it up, and he said, well, I've heard, maybe he doesn't have the speed. But if you ever watch him, and I've done a really good job trying to watch him, when he gets off the line within the first 5 yards, I think Trent Sherfield is better from 6 to 10 yards. But when Kirk gets off the line and he's able, because he runs through his spot pretty quick, and again, those crossing routes. So, again, I think Mike McCoy is going to have certain packages for a guy like Christian Kirk.
Social media, we do it every single show, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here on Cards Covered 2. Use the hashtag Cards Covered 2, using the number 2. It's how we close the show each and every week during Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. Behind the scenes, special thanks to Tim Delaney, Jim Omohundro, Devin Henry, Jeremy Schnell, plus Grant Greeley, Jonathan Hayward, Brandon Natus, and Jackson Sipes. We'll be back with you on Friday here on Cards Covered 2. Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. More breakdown of Cardinals and Redskins Week 1. Getting closer and closer. Seems like we've been talking about it now for months, but it is this Sunday, 1:25 at State Farm Stadium. We'll talk to you on Friday.